before we go on, it's Vijaya. It's most devotees pronounce it Vijaya, but it doesn't have a long A there. So I noticed that, most devotees, if you notice how I was pronounced, Vijaya. Vijaya is how do you, not Vijaya, because if it was Vijaya, it would have a long A. The first A. So anyway, just a little hint there. Okay, we'll go on to the word synonyms. Vijaya, Arjuna, Rata, chariot, Kutumbe, the object of protection at all risk. Attatotre, with a whip in the right hand. Drita hoiha, controlling the horses. Rashmane, ropes. Tatshriya, beautifully standing. Ikshaniha, to look at. Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead. Ratihi astu, let my attraction be. Mamurashoho, one who is about to die. Yam, upon whom? Iha, in this world. Niriksha, by looking. Hataha, those who died. Gataha, attained. Sadupam, original form. Translation. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. So, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Haribol. So, a pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord within himself because of being transcendentally related by loving service. Such a pure devotee cannot forget the Lord for a moment. This is called trance. The mystic yogi tries to concentrate upon the supersoul by controlling the senses from all other engagements, and thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee more easily attains samadhi, or trance, by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature along with his holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not on the same level. The concentration of the mystic is mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural and pure love and spontaneous affection. Bhishmadeva was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Partha Sarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's pastime as Partha Sarathi is also eternal. The pastimes of the Lord, beginning from his birth to the prison house of Kamsa up to the Mausha Lila at the end, all move one after another in all the universes, just as the clock hand moves from one point to another. And in such pastimes, his associates, like the Pandavas and Bhishma, are constant, eternal companions. So Bhishmadeva never forgot the beautiful feature of the Lord as Partha Sarathi, which even Arjuna could not see. Arjuna was behind the beautiful Partha Sarathi, while Bhishmadeva was just in front of the Lord. As far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishmadeva observed this with more relish than Arjuna. All the soldiers and persons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attain their original spiritual form like the Lord after their death, because by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they were able to see him face to face on that occasion. The conditioned souls rotating in the evolutionary cycle from the aquatics up to the form of Brahma are all in the form of Maya, or the form obtained by one's own actions and awarded by material nature. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign dresses, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of material energy, he attains his original form. The impersonalist wants to attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord, but that is not at all congenial to the living sparks, parts, and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, the impersonalists again fall down and get material forms, which are all false to the spirit soul. A spiritual form like the Lord's, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord either in the Vaikunthas or in the Goloka planet according to the original nature of the soul. This form, which is 7% spiritual, is the sarupa of the living being. And all the living beings who participated on the battlefield of Kurukshetra on both sides attain their svarupa as confirmed by Bhishmadeva. So Lord Sri Krishna was not merciful only to the Pandavas. He was also merciful to the other parties because all of them attained the same result. Bhishmadeva wanted the same facility also, and that was his prayer to the Lord, although his position as an associate of the Lord is assured in all circumstances. The conclusion is that whoever dies looking on the personality of Godhead within or without attains his sarupa, which is the highest perfection of life. Okay? Vijayarata kutumba hatta totre drita hoya rashmini tatshri ekshane ye bhagavati rati me mamur shur yamiha niriksha gatakata swarupam. So Om Gana Timirandasha Gananjana Shilakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the first words used here are Vijaya Rata, which means basically, of course, Prabhupada translates Vijaya as Arjuna, but it actually means victorious chariot. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why it's a victorious chariot. There's two reasons. Of course, the obvious reason is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is on the chariot. And there's an interesting story in the Mahabharata that this chariot was hit by practically unlimited weapons. Enough weapons that would have demolished any chariot, whether it be a heavenly chariot or earthly chariot or whatever. But the chariot maintained its integrity throughout the whole time. Now, at the end of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna says to Arjuna, get off the chariot real quickly before I get off the chariot. So Arjuna steps off the chariot. And then Krishna said, get some distance away here, this thing's going to explode. And then Krishna gets off the chariot, boom! Instant, well, can't cremate a chariot, but instant ashes. So that's one reason why the chariot is called Vijaya Rata. Another reason is due to the flag on the chariot. There's an interesting story about that flag. It's not Krishna's flag. Krishna has Garuda as his flag on his chariot. But there's a different flag, and it's the flag of our friend Hanuman. My friend, at least. So, there's an interesting story of how that flag got to be there. When the Pandavas were in exile, they took advantage of being in exile to be able to execute austerities and get weapons and power and empowerment. And one of the Pandavas, of course, was Bhimsen, who is also called Vrikodara. Vrikodara means he has a wolf belly. Wolf belly means he likes to eat, basically. Just like sometimes you say to a child that's eating too much, you eat like a wolf. So, wolf belly. And so, Bhimsen was executing austerities. And as he was executing austerities, he executed austerities to get the mercy of his brother. Because his brother's name is Hanuman. And actually there's another brother too. His name is Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya, Bhimsen, and Hanuman are the three brothers. And so anyway, so he got the mercy of Hanuman. And he asked Hanuman for the benediction to appear on the flag of Arjuna's chariot. So during the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Hanuman was actually protecting Arjuna. Of course, he wasn't protecting Krishna. No one could protect Krishna. But he was protecting Arjuna. And not only was he protecting Arjuna, this is another reason for the victorious chariot, that he was roaring. And in the Mahabharata, it describes that his roaring caused many of the soldiers to fall down. Just like the ultimate sound weapon. Nowadays, the scientists are sort of investigating different sound weapons by which they can scramble people's brains. And so Hanuman was the original sound weapon. So for this reason, you have Vijaya Rita. So then apart from that, there's the whole discussion about attaining one's original Swarupa. And all the people there attained one's original Swarupa. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that it was not only because of the seeing Krishna, because sometimes you can see Krishna at the time of death and be the enemy of Krishna, just like another, I wouldn't say friend of mine, but another personality, Kamsa. He was seeing Krishna at the time. Of course, he's one of the two, Jai and Vijay, I understand that. But at that juncture, he didn't go back to home, back to Godhead. And sometimes you see like others who were killed by Krishna, and because they're offensive, they can just go to the Brahmajyoti. But it's explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that here, you have Bhishma Dev not only saying that people went back to Godhead, but it's by Bhishma Dev's desire, which is really important because that indicates that you need a devotee's blessing in order to achieve your Swarupa. Now, many times we have devotees, whether they're in the Krishna consciousness movement or on the periphery of the Krishna consciousness movement, who are attempting to achieve their Swarupa. And, this becomes one of the prime, let's say, objectives of their life, to try to understand who they are in the spiritual world. They may even read a lot of the books of the Goswamis and read about different things like Ekadasha Bhava. I'll explain what that means. That means when you go back to the spiritual world, when and if you go back to the spiritual world, there are 11 aspects of your personality and dress and activities that are connected with your Swarupa, your original spiritual body. And so some people think that, well, if I try to do this process called Siddha Pranali, then I will achieve my Siddha Deha, or understand my Siddha Deha. Actually, you have a spiritual body, and right now you're identifying with the material body, which basically is completely separate from the self. You're not even, in one sense, you're not even here in the material world. Your connection is based upon Krishna's illusory energy and attachment, which comes from being under the influence of Krishna's illusory energy. It's something like that movie, The Matrix, where we're actually in this illusory world, this virtual world, And they were thinking they were there, but actually they weren't there. And actually one time, I experienced that too. One time, this is an interesting story. One time I was with another sannyasi guide brother, and we went, where did we go? Oh, to Disney World together. Oh my God, we were in Maya. No. I won't tell you who. No, actually I can tell you who it is. It was Jayapataka Maharaj. And we were examining different rides, possible rides that could be utilized in Mayapur. So there's always a good justification for any type of thing you want to do. Right? Well, I mean, you can justify anything. Anyway, but it was service. And we were chanting the whole time. I think we both got 64 rounds done. So we went on this one ride. It was like virtual reality or something. And it was a cabin that tilted. You were going up into space or something like that. And it was like 3D. And I got nauseous. I almost threw up during the whole thing because I thought I was in outer space or whatever, going from one place to the other. But I wasn't, so I tore off my 3D glasses and started to chant Hare Krishna. And in this way, I came out of illusion very quickly and attained my material body. So, not my spiritual body. So, because I was in an illusion within an illusion. Like Prabhupada said, that's the problem with intoxication, too. That you're in an illusion within an illusion. And that's not so good. So anyway, how do we attain or understand our spiritual body? This is a really interesting question. Should we read all the books of the Goswamis and try? I mean, just like, for example, I was reading the Jaiva Dharma the other day. And the Jaiva Dharma, you have two devotees, Vijay Kumar and Brajanath. Some of you may have read that anyway. And they make their guru, and, after a day or two, they say to their guru, actually, I feel like a cowherd boy. Okay, you're a cowherd boy. And the other one says, I feel like a gopi. Vijay Kumar says. And he says, and the guru says, okay, but I got to talk to you privately where this cowherd boy can't hear. So, you read these things, there's a danger. And you think, wow, why haven't I achieved my Siddhadaya? I've been 50 years in the Hare Krishna movement, and I'm still suffering. My indigestion, disease, what's wrong? So, sometimes one may think like that. But, here's a big but. But negates everything. But the point is, that is not our process to undergo this siddha pranali. And some devotees, like if you go to Radhakund, you'll find all sorts of devotees who think that that's their process. But Prabhupada wrote something very interesting in the Vrindavan Bhajan. I don't know if any of you ever read the Vrindavan Bhajan by Srila Prabhupada. And where it starts, I'm sitting alone here, I have my family, but they're all, and I forget the exact words, there's also a bunch of names. And then he sort of like really lays into, that means criticizes in American and English. He really lays into people who are just sitting down, chanting, trying to achieve their Siddhadaya. He says, something like they're eating the mind's bananas. Now, bananas, I have to translate that. Bananas means someone, if you say someone's bananas, that means what? They're crazy. Oh, you use the same term. So, eating the mind's banana. And then he really gets into that. And then he talks about something very interesting. He talks about how we have to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's mission. And Prabhupada continually talked about this. Not only in the Vrindavan Bhajan, but in other times. How we have to serve the mission and, Varta Bhute Hoila Marasa Janmajar. Of course, anyone born in the land of Braj, or sorry, the land of India. I'm thinking of Braj, But anyone born in the land of India, Bharat Varsha, and Prabhupada I was listening to a class this morning. Prabhupada said that actually Bharatvarsha comprised the whole world. Has as his duty to teach others. In that famous verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Yari Dat Krishna Upadesh Maragai Guru Hoy Tore Desh. So my understanding is that one should dedicate himself to giving others Krishna consciousness and assisting the Krishna consciousness movement. And Prabhupada corroborates this understanding in the commentary on the fifth verse in the Upanishad. Nectar of Instruction. He says, he defines what the topmost devotional service or platform of devotional service is. He talks about Kanishtadhikari, Majjamadhikari, and Uttamadhikari. Of course, an Uttamadhikari is one, there's many definitions of Uttamadhikari, of course, but is one who's actually realized their spiritual identity. And Prabhupada says, gives a functional definition of Uttamadhikari. He says one who never falls down from Krishna consciousness, I'm just paraphrasing, who is always chanting his prescribed number of rounds, and is always thinking of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. This is like a functional definition. So from that, I can understand that like Prabhupada said, deserve, then desire. So many quotes we have from Prabhupada in that particular respect. That if one simply is absorbed in trying to satisfy Srila Prabhupada, then everything will be accomplished. In other words, you will ultimately realize your spiritual identity. Krishna will be pleased with you. And so then, understanding that, I've actually, in my own personal life, I'm just revealing something that may be helpful or not helpful. I've understood that my primary focus should be in life to please Prabhupada. Obviously I want to be Krishna conscious. Obviously. But in my own life, that's not my first priority. And that understanding is borne out in so many ways. Even Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, can't say even, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the verse that we chant every day, Yasha Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasha Prasada Na Gati Katopi, indicates that this is the methodology of becoming Krishna conscious. So one should first of all be thinking of pleasing Guru and ultimately pleasing Srila Prabhupada, because that pleases. If someone is a bona fide Guru in the Krishna conscious movement, their whole focus will be on pleasing Prabhupada. Therefore, if you want to please your Guru, what is it? Things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. It's one of the axioms that you first learn in logic. Therefore, if you want to please your Guru, you work on pleasing Prabhupada. And I could see that in my own life, that if someone wants to please me, what pleases me the most is if someone serves the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And if we maintain that particular focus, then surely we will become Krishna conscious. Or we will serve Srila Prabhupada life after life. So in order to do that, it is imperative that we learn about Prabhupada and his desire. And I find, as I travel around the Krishna consciousness movement, that many devotees, in fact, I would say most of the devotees, don't really understand Prabhupada too well. And if I were to take a poll here to see who has actually read the Prabhupada Leelamrita, it might be shocking, it might be embarrassing. And I know in my own life, whenever a biography of Srila Prabhupada comes out, like Mukunda Maharaj's biography, or of course the Leelamrita has been out for a long time, or other Shyama Sundara Prabhu's different biographies of Prabhupada, or his encounters with Prabhupada, or other devotees. So many nice. I mean, Vishaka, and then what was the other one? Oh, I forget. Harisharis, and what was the biography? Well, Prabhupada's cook, and I forget her name. Jamuna's biography. It's really interesting. If you read Jamuna's biography, all you chauvinistic men will be sorely disappointed. Because you'll find that Prabhupada actually dealt with the ladies and men equally. And he had the ladies doing arti in India. I mean, this is a discussion we had last night. I don't know if I want to get too much into this issue. We'll probably get kicked out. Kicked out of here, or out of the Krishna conscious movement. So, but you see how Prabhupada dealt with people, Prabhupada's mood, Prabhupada's priorities. And when you read about this, it becomes very easy to understand how to deal with your own life, how to deal with others, how to manage the Krishna consciousness movement. And that's what it means that Prabhupada is the founder of Acharya. So it is imperative for all of us really to spend some time, as I've been spent some time learning about Prabhupada and hearing from Prabhupada and reading his, of course, reading his books, but hearing about Prabhupada's life is essential because Prabhupada is Bhagavad Gita in action. You understand? Like I read the Bhagavad Gita, okay, it's very nice. What am I supposed to do? Fight everybody and kill everybody who's a demon? Okay. Fine. I mean, in America it's easy because we can have guns. I was born in America. I had several guns, so I know how to do this stuff. There's the Battle of Kurukshetra. They're demons. What else? Well, at least, maybe they're not demons, but they're hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, so that's okay. Anyway, so you read Gita, Namam Vishkutina Mukha. I can so many verses about the divine and demoniac natures and everything like that. And really, I don't know how to apply the Bhagavad Gita. But by hearing about Prabhupada, how he applied the Bhagavad Gita, how he was one pointed in carrying out the order of his spiritual master, Vyavasayatmika Buddhya, Ekeha Kurunandana, then I understand, this is Bhagavad Gita in action. And then I can really understand the verses in Bhagavad Gita. So anyway, so I like it. And then you'll understand your Siddhadeha. But if you try just to fix the image, at least with myself, if I try to fix the image of Krishna in my mind, okay, Krishna. He just flies away in about 10 seconds. Unless I just stare at the deities, But it's very hard. But if I think about pleasing Prabhupada, this is bhakti. In other words, not just knowing Prabhupada, but loving Prabhupada. And then it's very easy. If one is in love, it's very easy to think of the beloved. And of course, in the material world, one falls in love, and you think of the beloved for about how long? I don't know. I'm a sannyasi. But anyway, so what? A week? 2 weeks?
13 months.
13 months. Okay, got it. But when the first child is born, forget about him. That I've seen in marriages, other people's marriages, that when the kid's born, then the wife no longer pays attention to the husband. He's just the guy who brings in the money. Get out there and bring in the money. That's a story in the Ramayana too, where there was this dacoit, and he was making money for his family by cheating and everything, and he was asked by the Sapta Rishis whether he knew about all the bad karma that he had. And he said, yes, I know, but my family loves me and they'll be willing to share the bad karma. And he asked his family, and his wife said, hell no, just give me your money. And he said to his son, no, just buy me new iPhones. No, I made that up. And then he realized that, the love wasn't there anymore. But the love of Krishna, the love of Guru, is so overpowering. It's like you see that with Prabhupada. Whenever Prabhupada would talk about his Guru, and devotees even asked Prabhupada about his intimate relationship with his Guru. On one time they asked, do you ever feel separation from your Guru, from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur? Prabhupada just remarked, that question you don't need to ask. That means, in common language, it's none of your business, bud. And that means it's something very deep. And anyone who was with Prabhupada knows that when Prabhupada, I remember seeing Prabhupada talk about his spiritual message, and there were actually tears in his eyes. You had to look very close, because I would actually sit behind the Vyasasana. Everyone would sit in front of the Vyasasana and fall asleep. So Prabhupada said, one time when he saw everyone sleeping, he said, this Krishna consciousness movement is going on only by Krishna's mercy. But I would actually stand behind Prabhupada's Vyasasana, because, I would even look at the hair in Prabhupada's ears and just think, this is ecstatic. Sorry, I was in love. And so I could see, there were actually tears in Prabhupada's eyes when he would talk about his Guru. The attachment, the intense attachment is there. So that's the secret in Krishna consciousness. So any questions or comments? Questions, comments, arguments, problems, issues? Yeah. Do you have a mic? Yes.
Well, you started at the beginning, you mentioned that Siddhadeya, because he's saying because they saw
Krishna, yeah.
Time of death. But you're saying Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that it was actually the benediction of Vishwanath?
Well, he said it was Bhishma was praying for their liberation. And it is commentary on this particular verse, which I read last night. And so it's by a devotee's mercy. Hare Krishna. By a devotee's mercy. Because sometimes you do see, I was thinking about this, sometimes there are some circumstances where Krishna kills a demon, and the demon doesn't necessarily go back to Godhead at that particular juncture. And sometimes Krishna is confronted with a demon, he doesn't want to kill him because the demon is just too moochy. So it's like Kalyavana, Kalyavana, that story. Kalyavana was just like, he was just too moochy for Krishna, so Krishna just ran away from him. And Krishna had Muchukunda kill him. Krishna ran away into a cave, and then this demon thought that Muchukunda, who was sleeping, was actually Krishna, and he woke Muchukunda up. Muchukunda had the benediction that whoever woke him up would be cremated instantaneously. And that's what happened. So, if one has not gotten the mercy of the devotee, it's very difficult to be Krishna. It's not possible to be Krishna. Because Krishna say tomorrow, Krishna dite par. Krishna is yours. The song goes, you have the power to give him. And actually bhakti, here's another point. Bhakti mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. A verse from Bhagavad Gita. Only by bhakti I can be known. So where does one get bhakti? According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Krishna does not give bhakti. Bhakti is independent. This is from the Madhurya Kadambini. Anyone's read this? Yeah. So bhakti is independent. But bhakti resides in the heart of a devotee. That's how you get bhakti. And actually, chanting Krishna's names are not a material sound vibration. Krishna's names have to come down to cyclic succession through pure devotees. Otherwise, if you're just chanting Krishna's name and you haven't heard from a pure devotee, then, you've just heard from some famous rock and roll star or something like that, then it's namabash. Certainly there's some benefit. Like if in the Harinam Chintamani, it's mentioned that even if one chants accidentally, jokingly, derisively, or even the name of a hotel like Ramada, one gets some benefit. But you don't get the Bhakti Lata Bija until you come in contact with Guru, with a pure devotee. Brahmanda Brahmate Konna Bhakti On Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. So, by the mercy of Guru. I mean, I remember in my own case, I can't say I have Bhakti Lata Bija, but my own case, what happened is that I was listening to the radio one day, just trying to hear the Beatles or the whatever group, or Chubby Checkers, some of you may remember him. But anyway, nobody knows who he is here, you do. And then, all of a sudden, I heard Prabhupada chanting. This is in 1968 or 69. And I heard Prabhupada chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. This is from the first album. And when I heard that, my whole life changed. I became completely disinterested in my university studies. Previously, I was a straight A student. And after that, why do I have to study? What the? Everything changed just by hearing the sound vibration from Srila Prabhupada. So that's the potency. Because the Bhakti Lata Bija, the creeper or the seed of devotion, was there. And so it was by Prabhupada's mercy. So anyway, so I think there's the importance of the blessings of a devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness. So, any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Class Raj. It's a bit of an esoteric question, but I've actually been asked this before. I wasn't sure how to respond. It mentions in the purport that the conditioned souls are evolving from aquatics through to Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
And it has been pictured somewhere showing the position of the different species according to their evolutionary consciousness.
Yeah.
So the aquatics are put below fruits, flowers, plants, etc. Generally we think aquatics, they've got some intelligence, experience pain, etc. We don't really attribute that to the plants, etc. So in what way, how can we understand that the plants are more evolved than the aquatics?
I would be speculating, which I'm not going to do. But I'm aware of that description, yes, that the plants are more evolved. I mean, I could speculate, but I don't have no Shastra quotes, and I'm not going to speak about anything that I don't have a Shastra quote for. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I have heard, maybe it was somebody's speculation also, but that the opportunity of those species to hear the holy name, that's how their evolutionary order is based.
Oh, that's interesting. But I'd have to have a Shastric reference to it. Yeah, plants and creepers. And also plants and creepers, I mean, if I could speculate now, since you gave me the permission. Devotees can walk on plants and creepers too. So, Nushin Kabachi, you have it.
Yeah, it's just there's a letter where Prabhupada explains the evolution of how it comes out.
Yeah. But he was asking why, not only the evolution, but why.
Yeah, in this letter, Prabhupada talks, he quotes that Pralaya Paya Dijale.
Tritavan, yeah.
Yeah, and then he says, like, because everything's merged into the water after devastation, then gradually emerges from the water. Then we can experience that gradually land is coming out of the ocean. Because it's being immersed in water, it's natural for the beginning of life as a planet.
Yeah.
And then from that, everything comes out.
So he's talking about, how life begins.
It's just the evolution.
So when you're talking about aquatic, my question for you, does that include the aquatic plants too? Anyway, coral, whatever. Anyway, whatever. Right now I am in a human body, so. But we have great devotees like Uddhava pray to become creepers or grass. so the gopis could step on them. So I wouldn't mind that. So, any other questions? Yes.
So you were saying through chanting we can develop bhakti?
Through chanting and service.
So I wanted to ask, just get your words on through service we can develop bhakti because it's the verb. Love is a verb.
Yeah.
So through action, through pleasing someone, and spending your whole life really serving someone, and focusing on what really pleases them, then we can develop.
Yes.
True bhakti.
Yeah, I mean, what I think about is like, what would please Prabhupada? Like, if I were to go to Prabhupada right now and say, Prabhupada, I realize my Siddha Deha. How would Prabhupada respond? Just, you rascal. Get out there and do something practical. That's how Prabhupada would respond. So, but if I went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I just distributed, 100 of your Bhagavad Gita, something like that. And Prabhupada's, I had personal experience of that, actually. When I was with Prabhupada, I presented to Prabhupada one time. I was a temple president. Then in our temple, we distributed 35,000 hardbound Bhagavad Gitas in 1 month, in one city. And Prabhupada, he was sitting calmly before that, his eyes open wide, like little saucers. And some of you have heard this story before. And he said, wow. Basically, wow. And then I pointed out one devotee who was with me, our best distributor. It wasn't me that distributed the books. I was just eating prashadam that month. No, I did something. But anyway, so I said, this one devotee distributed 10,000 of your books. And Prabhupada's eyes opened super wide, and he said, he has the mercy of Krishna. And I was thinking, what about me, Prabhupada? I organized the whole thing. I'm the temple president. I'm the big guy in the totem pole, in the hierarchy. Prabhupada read my mind, or saw my face or something, and he said, you all have the mercy of Krishna. and then he said, but it's just like the gopis, in one sense they're higher. So, and then Prabhupada also commented at one time in a letter to Ramaswar that his understanding that the preaching was in the mood of the gopis was the proper understanding. So when I'm talking about preaching, I mean anybody who cooperates or serves the mission. And that's what I usually advise devotees. You should see how much you are contributing to the mission. And I use the term value added. You understand? Value added to the mission. If you're just simply sitting around eating prasadam, you may be adding some value, helping get rid of the prasadam or something. Or if in India, if you're in India, fertilizing the fields. But anyway, so, but maximize, sorry about that one. So maximize your value added. That's the point. That's how I try to think. How can I maximize what value I add to Prabhupada's movement? And some people can add more, some people can add less. But Krishna sees, as Prabhupada said, not what you're holding back, not what you're giving, but what you're holding back. It's like Hanuman and the spider type of thing. The spider was contributing as much to Ram's mission as Hanuman. So that's the point. So this is not meant for anyone to feel that, I'm just a tiny devotee, all I can do is iron the Lord's clothes or something like that. No. If you're doing 100%, that's 100%, and that's seen the same as any big biggie. Prabhupada would call, sometimes the leaders of the movement, he would call them the big biggies as a type of criticism. He said, call the big biggies here. Those who thought they were big. So, So you may not be prominent, you may not have your name in the stars or whatever, or in the front page of ISKCON Review, but you may be just as dear or more dear to Krishna.
So actually finding our service
Yeah.
for Prabhupada is our Siddhadaya.
Yeah. That is our Siddhadaya. Yeah.
What is our service to Prabhupada?
Mm-hmm. And we should pray, Mama Janmani Janmani Shri. Pray to become, at least this is how I pray, to become Prabhupada's servant life after life. So I'm not really concerned personally whether I go back to Godhead or not. I'm more concerned with pleasing Prabhupada. And that is already back to Godhead, as far as I can understand. So, on that note, it's time for prasadam because we disobeyed the instructions over there. It says 8:15, and I am way over time. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.